mean, because even if you said it within commute with it.
I'm sure should be, yeah.
I'm not considered that reasonable for me, because I would die. Plenty of people do. I considered it. And then it's like, just takes so much out of it. Catherine is probably gonna be a few minutes late.
Oh, I thought I saw her pull up. Maybe that was somebody else.
Well, she texted me and said she's coming from Pueblo,
Oh,
but she's on her way.
okay. Yeah, that's her commute every day.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun either.
Well, and you know,
Shorter, yeah.
it took me an hour and a half. Because I left work, I had to stop to get gas. and I had to
Yeah,
stop to pick
well, I
her
went to the lake.
up. And I've got a
Oh, wait a minute.
You've got a lengthy,
big circle.
especially when you go
Sure.
out.
And that was one of the
Well,
points that I made as far as
let me
when
go
you
back
make it
in.
here
Turn on your mic. and I'll see.
Yep.
in person,
You.
you know, it's how you prioritize your stuff. So this is the one from last time, isn't it?
Hello.
Oh, yay!
Hey, Catherine, we're just pulling up the agendas and
So this is from the
whatever,
last
what,
time.
yeah, that's last special meetings.
I just saw a couple of things on here. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I
Just,
expect you to.
Town meeting. Participate.
Okay, and there was some I didn't do last meeting.
Heidi, we're gonna ask.
Okay.
Just because people weren't there doesn't mean everyone was like nominated to everything. Even though Catherine, you've been nominated to website person again.
I didn't say
Okay. Well, because everything has to go through you.
No, that's
website
that
updates.
And Cindy was voluntold to do the
And
treasurer.
Cindy's gonna be the treasurer, so
I think that as long as I'm chamber treasurer.
it's, yeah, absolutely, because it's all the same stuff, so.
Have you heard
Yeah,
something?
and there was a Darwin lady to be the name. I couldn't remember the
well,
last name
oh.
to save my life.
Coordinating.
Darlene Jensen.
There you go. I was like, you know.
And she had indicated she wasn't there, and I haven't heard from her, but she had indicated.
Okay.
That she was-
And I need to do the attachments anyway, so.
Yeah. Jensen.
Yeah, I think that's just.
So just, yeah, I'd already asked, and they will discuss everything.
Okay, cool.
It's not completely committed yet.
All right,
But thank you.
all right. I was just glad to get it going.
Yeah.
Okay.
So did you ask Clay?
Clay said he was coming. He said somebody would work with him. So. Hopefully he's coming. He said he was coming. Becky, did you talk to him?
I have not heard from him.
Yeah, he told me he was gonna be here. In person.
Traffic, probably.
Right? You just don't know. But we're just making sure it's up and running and we'll get there. Even if we have to delay a game a little bit for him. Got it. In February 15th. Well, I don't know, are you done that?
Are we streaming yet?
We're streaming.
Probably because.
Virgil says it's not streaming.
That's okay, we're still trying to get
I
there.
had it up just a minute ago.
I'm marshalling the volume. Oh, he says he's got it now.
He's got it?
Yeah, tell them we're not doing anything yet. It's fine.
It's working fine.
Yeah.
Sorry, do whatever you need to do with the door.
Oh, yeah.
Albert has it.
And then bring it back to me.
You can leave it open.
Oh,
Did you have All right. Nate, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Call this meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, Tuesday, February 15th. And this is the regular Board of Trustees meeting.
That's better.
That's better. Now everyone can hear me.
There you go.
For Tuesday, February 15th. And it is the regular Board of Trustees meeting today. Let's see, the time is 7:04. Yeah. All trustees are present and accounted for, except for Trustee Quinn. At this time, would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Checking my email just in case I've heard from Clay. And we'll get going. Nothing, so we should be okay. First item is any additions, deletions, or corrections to this agenda. I would like to suggest that we possibly delay item 4 until Mr. Brown gets here. He had said he was coming today, so I assume he is. So I'd like to move that just down the agenda and bring it up when he gets here. So that is my motion.
I'll second.
If there's no discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes. Item 3 is the consent agenda, which is the accounts payable from February 1st to February 11th, the minutes from the Board of Trustees meeting on February 1st, and the minutes from the special meeting on February 10th. Does anyone on the board want to bring any item out for discussion? Seeing none, I will motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. We will move right to item 5, which is the RFP for the comprehensive road plan. Becky, do you want to present that, please?
Yes, thank you. This is the RFP for our comprehensive road plan attached in your packets, along with a timeline, a proposed timeline for posting that bid and posting the RFP and working to secure bids on that one. This is the one that I was hopeful to go ahead and get going because I think that the findings of this plan will help to prepare us for our 2023 budget, as well as pursuing funding opportunities for any projects that are identified in that plan. The timeline that has been proposed allows for an opportunity to extend into April in the event that we don't have enough qualified bidders in the first round.
Do we have a minimum number of bidders?
Typically, it's 3 per our thing. If we do not have that amount of bidders, and if we don't have enough, and none of them are qualified, I think that we can evaluate the qualifications of the bidders that do submit.
All right. Board, do you have any questions?
Sounds good.
I have a couple of revisions, if I may,
Please.
to the request for proposals. It is on.
Break it down. There you go.
Hello? Can you hear me? The submittal requirements, the first sentence under cover letter, if you could remove the word shall. And then under references, you refer to consultant in 2 spots rather than respondent. And on the next page, about the town, referring to the Outlook, the hotel Outlook, instead of the man's, refer to it as the parsonage.
As the, I'm sorry?
You have These include the Church in the Wildwood, built in 1889, the Hotel Outlook, originally a manse for the church. It was originally the parsonage.
All right, I think I copied and pasted that from somewhere, so I'll check the source and make sure it's correct there as well.
That is a Presbyterian phrase, and it's a congregational church at that point, at that time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Look, we learned something today. I did not know that. All right, board, if there's nothing further, there is board action required.
So I would like to move to approve the timeline for RFP and, sorry, oh my God. Move to approve timeline and update recommendations.
Thank you.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
If there's nothing further, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 That motion passes. Thank you.
Our guest is here.
Our guest is here.
Oh, good.
Come on in, Clay.
He went to the office. Here he is.
Clay Brown, how are you?
Madam Mayor, I'm good. How are you?
Doing fine. We have you actually next on the agenda if you are so inclined.
Wow.
If you need to catch your breath.
Or if you want a breath, we really can talk about our planning commission nomination.
Go ahead, do that.
All right, let's do that then. The planning commission had a vacancy and we have a volunteer in the form of Mike Frey. You have all seen his application. Planning commission has recommended that we appoint him. Do you have any questions about his application?
I have a question concerning some legalities that have come up in the past from applicants. And it doesn't indicate on here, and I think we really should update our applications to indicate and ask, how long have you been a resident and are you a full year resident? Because at one point I was under the impression that the phrase were only a partial year resident, but maybe I had that wrong.
The application has a question, how many years have you been a resident?
Oh, it says 6 months.
6 months there. Our code
Is
specifies
it 1 year?
1 year for the board,
Okay.
but for everything else, it does not specify that. It just says must be a resident.
Okay.
Resident is not further defined than that.
And I think it's only because of the nature of the board. Since it's a quasi-judicial
You mean that?
entity.
I think
for
that's the
planning.
intent, but even for planning commission, it doesn't specify a year. It just
Okay.
specifies resident for all boards and commissions, or for all committees and commissions essentially,
Right.
except for the board.
We did request, well, I did request when we were reviewing the code with the attorney, that we add a definition to the beginning of the code that would define what a resident is. We talked about 12 consecutive months, voter registration, homeowner, but I don't believe in the final version that I saw that was even added. So the attorney just sort of blew it off.
Yeah, I remember reviewing that and thinking that there wasn't much change in this area, so.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Well, we may have a discussion on this at another time, but I know there's a lot of legal back and forth about what is a resident and what is not a resident.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you can say resident or if it needs to be some other term. So I would suggest you guys put that in your file of things to ask for the attorney. I would also strongly suggest that we probably come a little more in line with all our quasi-judicial situations. So planning commission, the board, and board of adjustments should probably all be very similar in what their requirements are. But at this time, we don't have any of those requirements.
And the only reason I brought it up is because of issues that have arisen in the past. And I just want to make sure that we're not treading on thin water here. And I definitely do not want to discourage anyone from applying. We absolutely appreciate the application, but I just want to be sure that moving forward, we're doing it right so that we don't have somebody that's phoning everything in from another state. So those were my comments. Thank you.
I think it's going to lead to a bigger discussion. But at this time, we're looking at Mr. Frey, who's interested in being on the Planning Commission. And he does live here now, and he has a business here, and I think in a lot of ways it will be very eye-opening and very interesting, as it always is for people who come on to a committee, to learn that we do have some ordinances, a few ordinances that we follow, and we try to follow them all. So, in that case,
Question.
yes.
When we get volunteer applications like this, do we have any input from the board that they are applying for?
And Planning Commission has recommended that we appoint him.
Thank you.
And actually, we do have the head of the commission here.
Commission
You can
chair.
ask him for comment if he has any.
Todd, would you please?
Yeah. I'll speak into that so the people can hear me. I don't want all the microphones. Okay, am I broadcasting?
You're live.
Okay, so yeah, it was reviewed by the planning commission. The planning commission was unanimous. I've actually looked up residency in the state statutes, and it's even a little iffy, because it says for planning commission specifically, it says bona fide resident in the state statute. And so I went to the, what do you call them, some of the taxing information. There's information on, like, if you're I think you're statutory resident if you're here 6 months of the year or more. And then there's also something for people who have 2 homes.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
we'd be really good at some point to basically put in a understandable definition that complies with all the statutes.
All right. So you have an application in front of you. What is the board's pleasure?
Well, I would move that we approve the application
All right.
as it meets the requirements that we have as of today.
And thankful for a volunteer.
It's good to have a volunteer.
And I know that he's been on the other side of the planning commission at least a time or two. And so I think it's helpful that he's familiar with the process.
So is that a second?
That's a second.
All right.
Long-winded.
Sorry.
It's all good.
We're all like.
We're supposed to second before we discuss. That just seems backwards.
It seems
I
backwards,
apologize.
but there we are. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
And Mr. Frey is appointed, so thank you. Clay, have you caught your breath?
Yep.
Okay.
If you'd please go to the dais, and happy to hear from you. This is Clay Brown, who is currently our Department of Local Affairs representative, but he is going to be retiring, but we let him have his talk.
Still on, great. Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's true, I'm gonna be retiring next month. I wanted to make one last visit to Greenmount Falls with your changeover in town manager. Congratulations, Becky. A long time ago, the town looked at hiring a town manager, and there was quite a discussion. Town did that. Things kind of changed and didn't work out.
And the town decided to give it a try a second time. And they enlisted help, myself and some other city managers, to help the town come up with a job description and recruit a town manager. And since I guess I was involved in that and that we helped get the thing kickstarted with a grant, I wanted to address the board before I left about my concern about, I think there's some communication issues, some misinformation out there about the position. And I just wanted to kind of give you my 2 cents about it. So you heard it straight from the horse's mouth about what this position is and actually a little bit more about what the town government is. You know, you hear a lot about us living in the greatest democracy in the world, but not everybody understands what type of democracy we have. And we have a representative form of democracy. It is not a direct democracy. Everybody doesn't get to vote on every agenda item, do they? Right? We have elected representatives that are elected to do the people's work. And then those elected representatives have to appoint staff to assist them, especially when you go to small municipalities in the state of Colorado. It is hard for an elected body that's part-time, unpaid for the most part, to be experts on everything and to be able to handle things in this complicated world. And in the state of Colorado, our Constitution vests the most authority in the government that's closest to the people. That means municipal governments. Municipal governments are actually an incorporation, just like a business would be incorporated. So if you ever see that word, that means you're special, you're different than other forms of government. Special districts are not incorporated, neither are counties. Counties are an arm of the state. They're not independent corporations as a municipality is. And we have 2 forms of municipalities in the state of Colorado that has all this responsibility to take care of its citizens. One is a statutory form and one's the home rule form. Home rule, basically you go through a process to create your own constitution, if you will. It's called a charter. And basically a home rule community can do whatever it wants to do without other regards, to the most part, to most state statutes. There's some that apply, as long as it's not unconstitutional, because they've made up their own constitution under the authority of the state's constitution. But when it comes to non-home rule municipalities, you have two kinds. You have cities and you have towns. In the old days, they called anything over 5,000 a city. And once you got less than 5,000, you didn't have to change your name to a town. And once you were a town and you wanted to get, and you went over 5,000, you didn't have to change your name to a city. So we have towns in the state of Colorado, like the town of Monument, that is more than 5,000 in population. And we have cities like the city of Victor, with a population of 300. That's a city. And so it's not about size. It used to be about size, but it's not anymore. What it is about is what the statute gives you for authority of how to operate. And in a statutory city, they have 2 forms of government. They can have a city manager form of government, and they can have a city administrator, mayor form of government. Most city manager form of governments is what you see in a home rule community, even at a town level. We call town managers. There is a distinction between the names. It's not that you can't use one over the other, but if you look at the statutes clearly, you'll see that there's this constant theme throughout. So in a home rule city manager form, or when a city goes to an election and changes its form of government to a city manager form, the manager denotes someone who's the CEO, the person who is running the entire organization. Usually means the authority to hire and fire all employees. Everybody answers to the city manager. The mayor is, for the most part, a ceremonial head of government. sits as a council member, may or may not vote, depending on how they organize. If they don't go and change their form, then they're stuck at this statutory city form of government, which we still have in Colorado. The city of Idaho Springs is a good example, where the mayor is actually the CEO of the community. The mayor is in charge. Everybody answers to the mayor. They may have the police chief and some other officials could be appointed by the city council. But basically, the police chief would then answer to the mayor. Also, kind of an archaic form of government. Statutory cities have an elected clerk and they have an elected treasurer, which they can go to election and get out of, and some have and some haven't. But it's a different form of government. It's kind of unique. The manager person, though, is called a city administrator. And so the administrator title means that they're clearly the administrator, they're not the CEO, the mayor is the CEO. And so in that form of government, it kind of depends on who the mayor is, on how well that system works and what they do. By ordinance, they can change things around. So if you have a mayor who's retired and has lots of time on their hands, may say, hey, I want to help the administrator run the city day to day. Other times, somebody's commuting to work every day, says, no, I don't want to. So they just kind of work it out. Or in the case of like the city of Victor, they say, you know what, we need a professional administrator. And we're not going to an election to change our form of government. We're going to, by ordinance, delegate authority that was given to the mayor in state statute down to the administrator. And so you have effectively a city manager form of government, but it's done by ordinance, and it's just a structural reorganization of the administration. In a town situation, a statutory town situation, unless you're home rule, you can't have a town manager form of government. Statutes don't allow for it. So technically what you have is, the statute says it's made up of, depending how big you are, 5 board members, and then may appoint other officers such as the town clerk, treasurer, and if they want to appoint someone to be a town administrator. Effectively, the mayor is still the CEO in a statutory town. But these days, just like Victor did under statutory city form, a lot of communities say, hey, we need a professional manager. And so they create a position and they grant authority to that position to operate. And that person answers to the town board. Some places give ability to hire and fire everybody. Some say you can hire, we don't care, but you can't fire unless the board approves it. And there's all kinds of different models of how people do it. But it's basically still a board of trustees, mayor form of government. And that's what you guys have. You've really never changed your form of government. It is clearly still the same way under the statute. It's the only way you can do it. But you've just created an administrative position to help you carry the burden of all the work that you have. And why do people do it? Frankly, because the world's gotten complicated. It's really gotten tough. I would tell you, I've spent 25 years in local government. I was a town manager. I would say that the reporting requirements and the knowledge you got to have of federal law and statutes is tenfold from when I started back in a long time ago. It is just, it's craziness. And now we're getting these federal dollars, like this ARPA money. I mean, who in this room knows what CFR 31 is?
Only because I work for financial aid.
How many people know that?
I know.
This is first time, 45 years. First time we've ever had to comply with the requirements of CFR 31. And we administer millions of dollars of federal dollars. It's never applied before. So guess what? Department of Local, local affairs are the experts in local government, right? And we don't even know what the spell says because we've never had to be under those requirements before. So it's really hard for me to imagine a lay board having the time to learn the CFR or any of the other state statutes. Within the state of Colorado, just the last two legislative sessions, the amount of reporting requirements and the mandates they have placed on you is incredible. Even if you don't even perform the activity. So there's a form that you have to fill out, an inventory you have to do every year about seized items, forfeiture items. We have a person in our Denver office that collects this data. I have police departments, I have towns with no police departments. They don't seize anything there, but they still have to report every year. I mean, but it's just craziness. There's so much there and there's so much responsibility. And, you know, face it, we're in a society that is, you know, very quick to hire attorneys and to sue. And I will tell you this, that we mentioned this when we first came up with this concept of a manager here, that part of the reason to do it is to protect the town and keep you from incurring liability. And having that person be the buffer between your employees and yourselves is huge. It's huge. Because if the manager screws up, you just fire them. You just get rid of them. They're on a contract, they're at will. You just get rid of them. You screw up, you're gonna land in court, and you're gonna get sued for a lot of money. And that's the bottom line. I will tell you a story about myself. I got my very first job as a town manager because of a lawsuit of a wrongful termination of the public works director by the town board. They didn't follow the proper procedure as you guys sitting by yourself, basically what the attorney say is there is no right of appeal. And so the employee was terminated by the board, but there was a lack of due process because there's no alternative after you guys. Where do you go? Except to court. And the federal court said, you deprive this person of their rights. You can't do that. And so the insurance company said, you guys better hire yourself a town manager because we're not going to cover you next time something like this happens. So it's kind of ironic, but I did get that's a true story, I got my first job because of a lawsuit. So it's very true. It's not a story about why it's a good idea. You know, I will tell you one of the difficulties that you have as well as the right thing to do, probably organizationally. And we fund managers all over the state. We've got managers in towns of 200 people. I mean, it doesn't matter about the size. What matters is about where you want to go and what you want to be and what you want to do for your community. And one of the things that we tried to make sure in Green Mountain Falls case is that, and we do it in all of them, is that when we go and invest and help you start that town manager position, where we pay 75% of the cost the first year, you guys pay 50 the next, and then you pick up 75 the third. Fourth year, you're on your own. We want to make sure you stay with it. And while we don't have a contract with you that legally says we're just going to guilt you into it, right? And so what we did is we studied and came up with a white paper on alternative financing of the manager's position. And I think the board went to the voters and passed some sort of lodging tax. I don't remember what it is, some sort of tax on spending the night here to have a source of income to pay for that manager position. And therefore, we are willing to go all in and help the community do it. Because if you want to move your community forward, you got to be able to spend the time to address all these issues. And it's really tough as a volunteer board. It is. Not that you can't do it, but I will tell you the most successful communities are those that have a professional staff that help them along. It's not the staff that's running the show, you guys run the show, right? You know, what I always said was I was a manager, You guys make the policy, my job is to carry out the policy. Right? And I always had to be apolitical. Right? I could not take one side or the other side because the new town board was going to come in, I was going to have to work for them, right? And so my job was to give the town board the very best advice I could for them to have all the information to make the very best decisions for the community. Much like my position now. I mean, our motto is simple: help make Colorado communities successful. That's my job. And you guys know that I've been here multiple times. I will share with you the toolbox. I will never tell you which tool to pick up. That is up to you guys. My job is to show you the tools, share with you the information, and then you guys collectively come to a decision of what's best for Green Mountain Falls. And there's no right or wrong. It's just whatever works in that community. And every community, does things differently. And so while we may use the same toolbox over and over again, seldom is it a cookie cutter kind of recommendation on anything, because every community is so unique. But our job is to help you manage that responsibility. My replacement will help you manage that responsibility to be here, either financially or with technical assistance. And that's why I wanted to come and address you tonight, is that I just want to make sure you got all the facts and that you are dealing factually with what you have to do. These days, I wish it was that way in all levels of government, that we could just have the discussions that we're supposed to have as citizens, and then make our comments to our elected officials, and then have our elected officials make policy. But it's gotten way too complicated now. And unfortunately, the truth isn't always what you hear. And it's a disappointing, after 45 years, I'll tell you, we've become pretty uncivil at the local level. We've been uncivil at the state level for some time. I mean, it was not too long ago, we had our very first legislator ever, century. Never had that before. And before, it didn't matter if you were a D or an R. You worked together across the aisle to do what was best for Colorado. And now it seems like we just got to line up by whatever that letter is after the end of our name. And that's not good for the state. And I work in the executive branch. I mean, I've seen it for a long, long time. What's best is when we get everybody together and have that civil discord, and then have our elected representatives make good decisions. And that's what's got to happen at the local level. And it's tough in this age. I see young managers all the time, and I was like, I don't even know how you guys can work and do this job anymore. I just go crazy if I was doing it. I used to just have a hard enough time dealing with one or two newspapers. It was always in there trying to get me to say something, go into something. But seriously, I mean, nowadays with social media, I don't know how you guys manage all that. You got people just doing stuff all over the place, and so information going out like crazy. And it's not a conversation where the press is sitting in the room and we're all hearing the same thing anymore, is it? The sound bites here and there and going. So hats off to all of you for being able to keep it together during this this new age of technology. I'm too old for it, I guess. I think it's sad where people have to spend so much time dealing with social media, and instead of what the important work that has to be done. So I'm getting off track with that stuff, but it is true. I do admire what you guys do, and I congratulate you for having a really great community here. School, it's nice to have seen all the changes over the years. 20 years I've been working with you, and I just really appreciate working with you. Thanks.
Well, Clay, hold on just a minute. I have to say a few things about you, because I can. I don't know if everybody realizes, besides helping us get a town manager and helping us really revamp and become much more professional as a board, Clay was really instrumental in getting this building, because he's the one who introduced me to the idea of of the, what is that, the energy grant. And we wouldn't have known without that. And you helped us every step of the way with that, and along with a lot of other projects. And I just can't thank you enough for all the help that you've given me and Green Mountain Falls over the years. And I have a present for you from all of us.
I don't do well with presents.
Oh.
You might be all right with this one.
You might like this. Except you have to wait till you get home though.
Yeah.
You can't open it early.
Oh. Booze.
Green Mountain Falls.
Oh.
I'm gonna taste that.
And we have it engraved for you.
Yeah, sorry. That is so.
There, they took a picture.
Wow.
Really likes it. Thank you, that's great.
Yeah, I know. Really.
Somebody get a picture. Right, there you go.
Thank you so much. Really do that. I
Hold on, another picture.
I enjoy
Two
it.
newspapers, he said. Newspapers.
I know.
It's the greatest, I mean, this is the best job I've ever had, really. Being able to meet so many people. COVID's been tough, I'll tell you, the last 2 years. I mean, we travel every day, meet people every day, and then sit behind a computer every day. That was really, really hard for us. So I'm glad I got to make it out here one more time.
And you know what, Clay? I want to say one other thing here, that, your encouragement with the grant and with the progression for us to build up a town manager. We knew hiring our manager that part of their job was to be able to make the salary sustainable because of the guidance that you gave us. And we really appreciate that. And that has happened. Our budget is at a point that the salary is sustainable. And thank you for that guidance.
You bet. You bet. See, I got it easy. All we gotta do is give you ideas and you guys.
That we can run, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much.
I can't imagine GMF without your support.
Right? It would be a sad place without it. Yeah.
Yeah, as long as
Can
I
you run a
hear-
grader? We're fixing the lake.
20 years ago, as soon as I got my first job as a town manager, I actually, I started in public works. Actually, my senior year of college, I dug water lines for the town of Netherland as my summer job. And they fired the water superintendent that fall, and one of the board members came to me and said, "Hey, would you like a full-time job?" I said, "No, I'm still in school." He said, "Well, you really should take this water superintendent job because you know more about the town than anybody else." I've been there like 2 months, right? I didn't know anything. And so I said, "Well, what the heck?" So I went to school until noon every morning, drove back from Boulder to Netherland and worked till late into the night on the job that I had started. Well, long story short, went to Silverton, was the public works director there. So yes, I can run a motor grader, and I plow a lot of snow too.
So you could come help move the rocks.
But we had a county administrator, so it was a position shared by the town and the county. And after the person who was there for a long time, who worked for DOLA, they really couldn't find a good replacement. Everybody came in, didn't work out. Came in, didn't work out. I said, "Heck, I'll do it." Well, the mayor at the time said, "No, we can't promote from somebody within. We gotta have somebody from outside." So I screw this. So the mine happened to shut down. My wife worked at the mine. So we said, "We're out of here." As our ticket. So I went to Fraser as my first job as town manager.
Wow.
But they didn't make me plow snow. I didn't have to do that.
Bye, Clay. Good luck to you.
Thanks for everything.
That's just.
That's been great working with you. Thanks, appreciate it. See you. Yeah. See ya. Thank you.
Yeah. He's been
He's been an asset.
He's been an asset. He's helped the town. I know he's helped lots of other small towns. But I think we always think of him as ours because He's just, he just cares that much.
And it's nice to have that recognition at the state level.
Yes.
From
Absolutely.
our side. I think it's
Absolutely.
really nice to have that recognition and to have that relationship that's been built and nurtured.
Right.
We didn't find out from him who the replacement guy is though.
Yeah.
Who do we need to make friends with now?
Currently, the position is being backfilled by some of the
okay.
other regional managers, but
So once it's official. Yeah.
but our current contact is Greg Winkler.
Okay.
So we still have contact. And we've been, the nice thing, and you think about it, big picture, we've been left in really good shape.
Absolutely.
Because it was very important to not only Clay, but to DOLA itself, to make sure that we stayed in that really good, smart administrative pattern. So that's that. Let's move right along here. And we have covered most of the agenda. We are on to reports, trustee reports. Catherine?
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Margaret?
Nothing.
Cindy?
Nothing.
And nor I. Committee reports, Nate, do we have anything?
No official report documents. I can update that obviously for fire mitigation, we turned in the grant on Monday and received some positive feedback, I think. So
Oh, good.
I think we're in a good, I mean, nothing official, right? But
still,
yeah, positivity. So that's good. Planning, and there will be another volunteer application on the next fire mitigation committee. So hopefully we'll get another member of that committee as well. Planning commission, the deadline for comments back from planning commissioners about the latest installments was yesterday, and not a whole lot of comment on that, but that is still moving along as far as the timeline we talked about. Trails.
Is that the code rewrite?
Yes, the code rewrite, sorry. Tomorrow there's another PRT meeting, and I don't have any official updates on that, but if either of the Dixons wanted to speak on either of those committees, okay. That's about it for committees. So I should ask, was that normal in the past to get regular sort of, I mean, what's the board's expectation or?
The board's pleasure is to
requirement?
have a monthly report, but it hasn't been consistent at all.
Okay.
So I think even if there's nothing to report, if we just let the people on the boards know, we want to report once a month, let us know where you're at, let us know what the activities are. And if there's nothing new, just let us know there's nothing new. Still just report that.
Have you ever had minutes included with, I mean,
We've had minutes in the packet,
yeah.
which is fine.
Okay.
But we still want some sort of, hey, we met twice, things are going along as usual
Just
or
real
not,
basic
or.
if nothing else. Okay.
Yeah. And that it helps us keep us in the loop when there is something going on.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, instead of like 2 months later being expected to vote on something that's the first time we've heard about it.
Right.
Yeah, I think I'm sure there are things that it helps if there's a wider audience that's aware of,
Mhm.
of a need
Yeah.
or some kind of a hiccup that we might be able to help with.
A lot of that, I'm just getting in a rhythm with all the meetings and everything going on, but that triggered pretty significant thing for planning commission. The variance was approved for the firehouse venue in planning commission, so that'll be before you next month, and so I'll post that here pretty soon. So that's the kind of a major happening with that development. Variances for the parking, on-site parking requirements, as well as a minimum lot size for development. So I'll have a more detailed write-up for you, and in conjunction with that public hearing and the public notice. So be on the lookout for that. Otherwise, we did receive that $45,000 PPRTA maintenance reimbursement that was pending last time. Website, social media, trying to do that somewhat regularly, but I have been posting once the live link for the YouTube for each board meeting is created, I immediately post that to Facebook. So hopefully that'll get some more viewers going that way. And also all the other videos, I've been trimming them. So I noticed a lot of videos from the past sort of have all this dead space, like beginning and end, and it's kind of somewhat unprofessional looking. So I've been trying to at least trim those committee videos so that, and then before I post them to YouTube and then link those to the website itself. As always, volunteers needed. We're still going to have 2 vacancies upcoming on the Planning Commission, even after this new volunteer with the addition of Sean and Todd to the board. So keep plugging away at your friends on that. And still 1 vacancy on Parks, Recs, and Trails. And yeah, that's about it there. Short-term rentals, we had one just approved yesterday by Becky. No feedback, no negative feedback was received. The notice was posted for the 15 days and mailings went out and all that stuff. That was the 11065 Falls Avenue one. Now we have one in that 15-day comment period at 6855 Howard. That's kind of a different one because it used to be part of the Lakeside Cottages. So it's zoned business, even though it's the only business zone on that residential street. But even though it's business zoned, it is still considered a short-term rental because it's not that hotel commercial model. So anyway, so they're going through the process on that to sort of catch up to speed with all the town regulations on that and getting connected into MuniRevs, all that good stuff. Then the other one pending, the 10870 Olathe, just basically gone through all the process, just waiting on documentation and payment on that. And so there we are, 50 out of 60, plus or minus 1, I guess. There's still some conversation on if an STR is in a business zoned parcel, does that count against the 60 or not? I don't think that was ever clearly defined. So
Never part of the conversation.
part of it's on our list for future conversations about that. So. And then the variances here that I mentioned from Planning Commission. And we're working with Victor down to Black Bear about the spring situation. He came to Planning Commission with a proposal, but it was needing to have some more vetting through us and through Pikes Peak Regional, perhaps what he was thinking about doing. So that's kind of an ongoing project, if you will. So
Has
that's what
anybody lost a tire yet?
Yeah. So open for a suggestion on that. It's a tough situation because it literally.
Slow down when you know they're there, but when you forget, it's like, oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're up for suggestions, but I mean, I think we're working together pretty well with Victor on that, and hopefully we can come up with a solution that's long-term and done the right way instead of just, trying to slap something up there. So that's about all I've got.
All right, great. Becky?
I do have a question for you, Nate, on short-term rentals.
Uh-huh.
Is there a limit? I see that there's 60 STRs is the limit.
No,
But is there a limit on how many can be
No, that was never defined. Mhm. And so, yeah. So there's a lot of,
Monopoly.
yeah, and I won't comment on that, but Becky and I both have ideas, I think, of different policy suggestions, I guess, moving forward. One of them that on the top of my mind is, do you force using it or losing it? You know, because I think a main purpose of doing all that licensing, as Clay alluded to, is to get revenue. But if someone just gets a license and never uses it, you know, what's the point?
If it's
Right.
inactive, yeah, I think we should
So,
have a policy
but-
that's inactive.
Yeah, so anyway, so that's just something to think about and something that'll be on our list, I'm sure, to discuss. So ideas about that kind of situation, or maybe some more discerning definitions between the hotel the hotel model versus the STR model, even though most hotels now advertise on the STR sites. Where does zoning come into it, and a lot of different things, inspections, you know, things like that. So anyway, lots of food for thought.
Curious about what the percentage of 60 is of the housing in
It's
the
supposed to be
town.
10%
It's
of the
10%.
residential.
Okay, great.
Of
Thanks.
the residential housing stock, but it was never defined as only so many on a street or anything like that. It was basically looking at the town as a whole percentage.
We actually had discussed how many on a street and
Yeah.
how we divided up by streets. And it was plenty of a push just to limit it at 60, because there was certainly people who were like, we shouldn't limit it at all.
Mhm.
But we thought it would be better for neighborhoods to at least have some sort of stop.
Yeah. It was good to limit it to 10%, because some communities that, I don't know, I think it's upwards of 30. Yeah, it's getting really bad in some communities because of that, just for people to work and live in the same place.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
So lots of food for thought there, but we'll certainly bring some ideas to you and compare and, you know, what some other similar communities are doing, and continuing to improve our, the software platform and everything that we use to manage it. So.
Great. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. So a couple of just highlights. Want to thank Nate for his time that he spent on the wildfire mitigation grant application, and the volunteers that supported that as well. It looks like there, might be some additional opportunities in the near future that could support that project as well. Be very complimentary. In addition to that, I got our HUTF report submitted for the year, as well as our narrative for the PPRTA report. I want to thank Public Works for helping me get that put together. Had some great before and after pictures of what was done with the funding from last year. So really appreciate Dusty's help on that. Let's see. Working with the Marshal's office also to develop sort of a succession plan. I'd like to begin looking at putting together an interview committee that would also be involved in, evaluating job description and making sure that your goals for that position are achieved. So would love to have any volunteers for that. You can let me know later. In addition to that, the Marshal would like to be able to give a little bit of a report. He's home caring for a loved one. If it would be okay with you, I could dial him in. While I'm doing that, do you have any questions for me regarding anything from my report? Good evening, Virgil. We're gonna try to make this work. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna try to make this work. It's not fancy.
Yeah, I know. I figured you'd have to move the microphone down to the phone.
We're gonna try to make this work. It's not fancy.
Okay, I just muted my YouTube, so maybe I won't be getting all confused and stuff. And doggone it, hang on. I had to make mute the theme song to Andy Griffith too. Margaret can appreciate that because she called me on Green Acres previously. I would like to echo a couple of things that Clay talked about real quickly. The Senate Bill 20-17 passed in 2020. And it's put a lot of burden on law enforcement statewide. The reporting is pretty tremendous, pretty intensive actually. And fortunately, I won't be here to have to do it, but my successor will. I would ask the board's consideration in some of those recommendations that I put forward to the town manager, that some type of consideration be given to another part-time or full-time employee in the marshal's office. I realize that our call load isn't all that intensive and we don't have to respond from one call to another call to another call, which I have had to do in my career. But the marshal is still held responsible for keeping the town within compliance of all the reporting requirements that are coming up. I have addressed the town manager in a memo with some of the things coming out of that Senate bill that are going to be a little bit money intense. Starting, just for example, starting in January, every officer on the street will have to wear a body-worn camera. The body-worn cameras are not a huge issue. I've worn them before. I love them personally. They keep more officers out of trouble than they get into trouble. But the bottom line is we have to come up with a method of retention. We have to come up with a mechanism where we can provide that in digital format to courts, attorneys, whatever. And should there be an instance where the town gets sued, we have to keep those things basically forever, because those lawsuits drag out for years and years and years. So one thing for you to consider as a board is how we're going to do that, but mostly how we're going to do the storage of the videos. We end up having to keep things in line because of world events that don't affect the town of Green Mountain Falls. The town of Green Mountain Falls, at least since I've been here, I have been very conscious to make sure and try to provide realistic law enforcement to the town. And thank goodness we haven't had any repeats of some of the things that have gone on nationwide. Okay, that's soapbox. I'm going to change to a different one real quick. With me finally being able to retire, I'm going to end a 45-year career. Not many of you know that my first title in law enforcement, outside of military law enforcement, being military police officer, my first title in law enforcement was deputy marshal. I worked in a very small town that had a marshal's office. And I cannot think of a better way to end my career. The board over the past 5 years has been tremendously supportive of me and my office. I stood here 5 years ago in that very room, and I was asked a question: why should we hire you? I thought for a second, and I said, because you need me, or you need somebody just like me. And I hope and pray that I have lived up to that expectation and that promise that I made to you and the town 5 years ago. I'm nervous about retiring, but I'm also excited. And I asked Becky, I sent her a text earlier and told Clay, or asked her to tell Clay, let's get ready to go fishing, partner. So we're going fishing. Thank y'all. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll be around. I've still got a couple of months to go,
Right.
even though I'm starting to slack. I've got a couple of months to go. But we will see everybody around. And like I said, I can't thank you enough. So I'm going to unmute my computer so that I can hear y'all. And thank you for your time. And I appreciate you. More than you know.
I'm waiting for him to get back on the live stream. Virgil, you know, you say we took a chance on you, you really took a chance on us. And I remember being really very much scared and worried about hiring a new marshal. But I knew this town needed a marshal, and I knew in my heart that what we really needed was community policing. And I really feel that you have more than fulfilled what we had wanted, and you've just been a shining example of how good that can be. And you were that for us. And so we have chance still to get modeling later down the road. But I can't say enough how much we appreciate you and your professionalism and you taking a chance on Green Mountain Falls. All right. Correspondence is Marshall Hodges' notice of retirement. You all have seen that. And the last item is for persons present who are not on the agenda. Would anyone like to approach and say anything today? Todd would.
I just wanted to basically say a big thanks to the staff for these reports that are coming in at the end of the, you know, in the agenda packets. It gives the town a lot of insight into what's going on. It makes the planning commission monthly report a piece of cake, as a see nature report, because he captures it all. He's got it all nailed. And so I just wanted to come up and say thanks for those reports. I echo some of the concerns about the short-term rentals. I'm probably equally as concerned about unlicensed short-term rentals. I think if that's happening, I think that's cheating the ones who are actually trying to do it right. So that may be something, I'm sure we'll have a lot of things to look over regarding short-term rentals in the future. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, I know there's going to be plenty to look over in short-term rentals. I do know our reporting company has been, has tracked and tries to keep up with, do we have any that are flying under the radar, which is great. One thing that I can't stress enough, and I've said it several times about reports, we tend to live in silos, and we almost think that everybody knows what we're thinking or what we've talked about. And then sometimes some of the committees, and we're no exception, are almost surprised when someone says they haven't heard. And I've certainly asked committees, well, I haven't seen that. Well, sure enough, it's been posted. You almost can't post things too much. You know, you have to keep catching those people and almost overkill and saturate with your whatever's going on. So I'm happy to see those too, and it's going great. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to our staff. If we have nothing else, and I don't see anything, this meeting's adjourned. The time is 8:11.
Thanks, Todd.